With further consultations scheduled before the final details are sorted out, plan calls for 6 helicopters and more to go to there. For more on Canada's mission and her challenges of talking trade with Trump, let's bring in Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland. Nice to have you back in our time zone for a change.
It is great to be back
What kind of aeroplan
in
miles
Canada
do you have?
and in our time zone. I'm getting to the point where when I get home, I feel like kissing the ground.
I'm sure you do. Well, I want to talk a little bit about this deployment. I mean, there's some details. There's still some holes to be filled in. Why Mali? There's a lot of bad places in this world. Why do you think Mali is the best fit for what Canada can offer?
Well, what we said at our peacekeeping conference in Vancouver in November was we were going to take a smart pledging approach. So we were going to, in conversation with the UN, figure out how best to leverage Canada's resources when it comes to peacekeeping. I think Canadians are really enthusiastic about Canada being part of peacekeeping, but we are a pretty small country and we're pretty small relative to the size of UN peacekeeping operations. So it makes sense to figure out how can we have the maximum impact. And in conversations with the UN, what we have learned is there are very few countries that have the advanced technical capabilities that Canada has, particularly in the air. So our helicopters are a particular contribution that Canada is one of the few countries that can make. And Mali is the peacekeeping operation that needs them. So that's how this came together. It's really what Canada's special capabilities are and what UN peacekeeping operational needs are.
But, you know, I was surprised. I forget how big Mali is sometimes. Like, it's literally the size of Alberta and Saskatchewan together almost. And does 6 helicopters do much? Do they deliver what's needed to make this problem less acute in Mali? Because it's a pretty nasty place.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is not 6 Canadian helicopters solving all the problems of Mali, right? The whole concept of UN peacekeeping is that it is a united effort of the UN and of countries that are participating in UN peacekeeping. Yeah. So we are part of a much broader effort, but our helicopters absolutely are going to make a very significant difference. And really one of the key points here is we can sometimes as Canadians forget how special our capacities are. There are not that many countries in the world who are able to bring this kind of capacity to a UN peacekeeping operation. So it definitely is going to make a difference for the UN, and Canadians should be proud of that.
Now, the Prime Minister committed to 600 or so troops and 150 police, as I recall, back in August 2016. Why did it take so long? We're into March 2018.
You know, Don, one of the things that I take most seriously as foreign minister, and that I know the Prime Minister takes extremely seriously, is putting any of our extremely brave women and men in uniform in harm's way. And I think we should take it seriously. So we have been very careful, very thoughtful, very prudent in figuring out this contribution, and that is the approach we will take going forward. And I think that's what Canadians expect, and it's certainly what our brave women and men in uniform deserve.
Well, Mali's no less dangerous today than it was a year ago. You could have been there a year ago and probably helped out quite a bit, too.
I think what's important is the planning. What's important is being sure that in contributing to UN peacekeeping, we are having the maximum impact with the resources that Canada brings to bear on it. And what's going to be very important is the planning and the work going forward in Mali. And of course, with UN peacekeeping, it's not just about Mali. This is our second SMART pledge. We've already made a SMART pledge to contribute to the operations in Entebbe. We also have launched the Vancouver Principles. That's very much inspired by that great Canadian, Romeo Dallaire.
Just on the show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well done. I mean, he's an amazing person. And continuing his work on really stopping the use of child soldiers is so important. And our ELSI project, or ELSI initiative, increasing the number of women in peacekeeping, that is going to be transformative, and that is a place where Canada has been taking the lead.
It's a terrible topic to ask, but should Canadians be prepared for casualties out of this mission? Is that something we can
you know, that goes back to your question about being careful and thoughtful and taking our time to do this right.
Take the risk out of it, though, right?
That's right. You can't take all the risk out of it. And if UN if a country is completely safe, then it doesn't require UN peacekeeping operations. So, this is a risk. Our Canadian women and men in uniform are extremely brave. Mm-hmm. I am personally very grateful to them for their service. And what I can assure them of, and Canadians of, is our government will make every effort to make their time of service as effective and as safe as it possibly can be.
Only 6 of the last stat I saw of our 43 peacekeepers now deployed are women. You talk about wanting to put a lot more women into the peacekeeping mission. Is gender parity the goal, or how do you plan on sending how many women? Have you got an idea?
The UN Security Council resolution is about getting to 15%
Is that what it is? Okay.
Overall. We very much believe that increasing the number of women peacekeepers is incredibly important. For many reasons. One of those is that there are a lot of studies that show where you have women deployed in peacekeeping, local people feel more comfortable approaching them. Children feel more comfortable approaching women. Women feel more comfortable approaching women. And even men feel more comfortable approaching women peacekeepers. So I think this can really change the dial. And there's one other issue that I think is important to address in this regard, and that is one of the really atrocious things that has happened is the sexual exploitation and abuse of local people by UN peacekeepers.
Absolutely.
Totally unacceptable, the opposite of what peacekeeping ought to be. And we really believe with our LC initiative, stepping up the number of Canadian women who are there, but also really taking practical steps to increase the number of women overall in UN peacekeeping, that's something that we can put an end to.
All right, I got a list a mile long of other questions, but I don't get to them today.
We didn't even talk about NAFTA.
Can you come?
Dawn, that's
we'll
the
book
thing
you for
we
tomorrow.
usually talk about.
Tomorrow. Like we got Russian.
I love to talk about NAFTA.
Russian poisonings. You congratulate Vladimir Putin on his election victory.
I hope you saw our unanimous resolution today in the House of Commons.
Yes, that was impressive. Okay.
That was a good moment for Canada.
All right. Thank you, Chrystia Freeland. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, good to be with you.